Hello, and welcome to another Wayland Free Library 3D design video. In this video, I'll be going over how to design a custom bookend. Yes, bookends, those things that prevent books from falling over on a bookshelf. If you've been to a library, I'm sure you've seen them in action. But they don't have to be only for libraries or even for books and bookshelves. Maybe you've got some games or movies you want to prop up on a shelf. Whatever your reason, let's get into this design. We've got three different design possibilities using Fusion 360. The first one is a pretty basic thin bookend with some support beams going across the side. The second option involves importing an SVG to emboss or engrave it on the side of the bookend. As you can see, I got some runes going along the side of this one, kind of Celtic knot design on this. And the back end of this is pretty open-ended in terms of design. I got some rectangles, squares punching out the side. This one kind of looks like a cloud. It's really just about making it big enough so that it can fit the SVG design. And the third design option involves making a basic design in Fusion 360 and then importing that into Tinkercad to use other objects or even designs made by other people. As you can see, the kind of very basic bookend design here, and then I took some other designs from across the web and kind of mashed them together to make like a, sword in the stone bookend. We're going to start off with design number 1. Keep it the most basic to start. So with Fusion 360 launched and at the kind of basic starter screen, go up to Create, Create Sketch, and just pick either the left or right panel for the X or Y axis. It'll snap to like this, and you'll get a grid with some measurements. And to get things started, I'm going to go ahead and select the line sketch tool, which is up at the top, all the way to the left. And the simplest thing to do here is to just snap it to the kind of 0 point, which is the little black and white circle in the middle here. As you can see, the cursor will automatically snap to it once you get close. So once it snaps and you get that little blue square highlighting it, just left click and we can start dragging out the sketch. And I'm going to follow the red line that's going along the bottom here. You can see those numbers. To start, we want to stretch this out to something between 50 and like 80 millimeters. This is going to be the kind of flat kind of base that's at the front of the bookend. So I'm going to bring it up to about 70 and left click. And next, we want to bring this straight line up, but only 1 millimeter. So as you can see, if you kind of move the mouse around, it will automatically snap to that grid line that's going up. So easiest thing to do is just get your cursor close enough. It'll snap to it like that. And then in that kind of text box there, it automatically highlights. Just type in 1, hit enter, and we have a 1 millimeter line going straight up. And all we need to do next, reselect the line sketch tool up there and snap it to the top of that little 1 millimeter line we just made. And we're gonna snap it to just above the point where we started. And I already have a good view here, but you might want to scroll out with the scroll wheel or pan up to get, closer to this 140, 150 line. You do that by holding down on the scroll wheel, moving the mouse. Because what we want to do is bring this top line up to between 140 and 150 millimeters. So I'm going to bring it up to 140 and left click. And for now, I'm going to hit the check mark to just pause it and say that, this will be kind of the basic skeleton of all the bookends, whether you want to do the basic one, the one where you import the SVG, or the one where you ultimately import it into Tinkercad. This is the starting point for all three designs. So let's start imitating the first design I showed. The most basic one, little point at the top, support beams across the side. So I'll continue to use the sketch line, and we're just gonna sketch out a little triangle point. Easiest thing to do is just kind of let it snap to the grid point somewhere. So however big or small you want this to be. So I'll snap it to the corner there, that one there, and then just drag out the rest of it. The part on the back really could be as small or as big as you want. Just depends on how much space you want the bookend to take up. I'm just going to kind of eyeball it. And once you connect everything in a continuous closed sketch, the whole thing will highlight blue, and you can go ahead and click on Finish Sketch. And what we're basically going to do next is extrude it out, and then use the pattern tool to get those repeating support beams across the side. So go ahead and click on Extrude. Since the sketch is the only thing here, it should automatically highlight for you. If it doesn't, just click on it, and up by profiles you should have one selected, and this will be a deep blue. So let's go ahead and extrude it at distance. Easiest thing I find is to just type in the number here, but you can also shift view and use the arrow to kind of drag it out, whatever you prefer. I've found 80 is a pretty good all-around number for your bookend, but really it can be as big or as small as you want, and it might depend on what you're trying to prop up. Things coming in different shapes and sizes and all that. But whatever number you need, just stretch it out, type it in. Whatever you do, once you have that finalized, just go ahead and click OK, and we will have the extruded basic shape of our bookend. And to get those repeating support beams across the side, we're actually going to go back and use the sketch tool. And we'll get this again, and we can just select the side panel that you originally sketched along. Gonna hold down the scroll wheel and move just to pan over a little bit. Gonna use the line sketch tool again, and we are just gonna right along the side profile here sketch out a little rectangle going across it. Once we have that, a continuous blue, just go ahead and click on Finish Sketch. And now all we need to do is extrude it a little bit, and then use the pattern tool. So we'll go back to Extrude, just select the sketch profile, type in how much you want to extrude it. I'm just going to go with 5. It's a decent thickness. You don't want it to be paper thin, but you don't want it to take up too much space either. It's probably something like 5 or 7, something in that area. Whatever it is, just go ahead and click on OK, and then we can go to Create, Pattern, Pattern on Path. And first thing we want to change up here is the type. We're going to switch this to bodies. So you want to select the whole body of the object here You know, the ones on either end are difficult to select if you go with faces, so just do bodies, click, path. We want to do this little corner path here, or this angle path. As soon as you have that highlighted black, so you can see it as it is on my screen, just left click. And just hold down left click on the arrow and drag it out. Scan over a bit for a better view. So as you can see, we got the distance that we're stretching the pattern there. And up over here, we also have quantity. So it defaults to 3. You can do as many or as few as you want. I'm probably going to go with 5, looked pretty good here. And you may also notice, depending on the size of your bookend, that it's kind of hard to get it to snap to the very end to get a nice even thing. As you can see, it kind of snaps off the side there. So I found the simplest thing to do is to just kind of guesstimate what the number is. Sometimes you can kind of drag it real close. I actually think that's pretty close. If I was having trouble with that though, I'd notice that 80 is over the limit and I would just start, you know, typing in 79, 78 and, you know, just get it to how I wanted it. Either way, once you've got the number, distance, everything good to go, go ahead and click OK. And bookend design number 1 is ready for 3D printing. With that done, I'm going to go ahead and Control Z my way back to the basic sketch that we had. One second here. All right. All right, so here we are back at the basic starting point of the sketch, looking to imitate design number 2 here. Just kind of a more open-ended back end, you know, kind of cloud shape, rectangles. So I'll do both of those, sketching this out. So within the sketch, we can go over to create, and as you probably guessed, you know, to get the rectangles popping out, you're gonna use rectangle. You know, circle if you want kind of more of a geometric cloud shape. If you want something more free form, I found using 3-point arcs and conic curves to be a good way to kind of get the kind of uneven shape on the back there. All right, so let's sketch out the back of our bookend with a combination of 3-point arcs, conic curves, rectangles, and spline to set up those rectangles. So I'll start with a 3-point arc, which is you kind of click 2 points on the graph and then use your mouse to kind of drag out the shape of the arc. So I'll select the first point at the top where I last ended and just point it downwards. As you can see, as large or as subtle a curved shape as we want. Go somewhere around there. And then just to show, I will switch to conic curve, which is kind of the same idea. You make 2 points. So just do where we ended the last curve, point it downward a bit. And then we kind of have a more free-form option when we use the mouse to drag out the shape of this curve. You know, we can kind of go up, down, in, out. So I'll kind of drag it downward a little bit. And then we have this arrow as well. We can make it more of an even curve or kind of pull it out more towards a point. Once you have that finalized, just hit enter and it'll lock it in. And I'll do one more arc and then switch to spline to get the rectangles coming out like with the other design. So we'll go spline, fit point spline, and then you can kind of just drop points, move the mouse around. Once you get it how it looks how you want, you can click. And once you get to the bottom red line, you can just tick the check mark to finalize the sketch. And then we can go ahead and make some 2-point rectangles to kind of jut out the side here, which much like the arcs, you kind of click once, and then you click again on a different point to you can kind of see we're dragging out the outline of the rectangle here. You just click again when you have the shape that you want. And last thing we need to do is just close the sketch together and extrude it. So I'll switch to basic line, bottom, and then to the point where we started the sketch. That'll highlight blue to signify that it's all close together. And we can go ahead and click on Finish Sketch. And we can go ahead and extrude this out now. So create, extrude, and then just be sure to hold down Shift and select any additional faces. You know, when you mash sketches together, they kind of separate. So just make sure everything is selected. And go ahead and extrude that out to your desired width. And click OK. We can go ahead and insert some SVGs now. I will not go over how to create your own SVGs in this video. I go over that in my, designing your own coasters and magnets video. I will leave a link in the description below. The section for creating your own SVGs is maybe like the first, 10 or 12 minutes or so. Alright, so inserting the SVGs, Insert tab, insert SVG, and in all likelihood they're saved to your computer somewhere, so click on Insert from my computer. You can see I have a couple here. These three are kind of the ruin symbols. This is the kind of Celtic knot design. So I'll insert a couple of these. I'll insert this one. And rather than, selecting one of these axis planes, you can actually select the front face of your bookend. And it will, stick to it, making engraving or embossing much easier. Only downside is it can get a little tricky to locate exactly where it inserted your design. Mine was towards the bottom. And so I'm going to use these arrows and this rotation wheel to rotate my design around. And this kind of crescent symbol, you can hold down left click on that, move the mouse, and you can scale it up and down. So I'm going to give it a good size. Push it towards the top. I'm going to click OK. And for good measure, I'll insert one more here. Insert this ruin. And as you can see, this one is significantly larger than the other one, so let's scale that down. Stick it in right there. Maybe down a little bit more. All right, and then just click OK. And then once you've got your designs in place and sized up and all that, just click Finish Sketch, and then it's just a matter of selecting the faces and extruding or, punching them inward. And we can do that now. So I'll go to the Extrude tool. It'll ask me to select a profile or face. Depending on your design, it might be kind of tricky to get the whole thing selected all at once, as you can see here. But eventually, you should get to a point where it highlights the whole thing for you. Then you can just left click, and then hold down Shift, select this other one as well. And the easiest thing to do from here is to kind of punch in your distance. So, if you want to emboss it on the bookend, you want it sticking out, you can type in a positive value, and it will extrude outward. And if you want it engraved, you would just do a negative value, so we'll do -5. As you can see, that engraves it into the side. Whichever one is your preference, once you have the positive or number punched in, you think it looks good, you can go ahead and click OK. It'll probably compute for a little bit, but it will then either emboss or engrave your designs into the bookend. And if you want matching bookends for the left and right ends, that can be easily done. Just go to Create, Mirror. Make sure type is set to bodies. We'll automatically select the whole thing. Then on Mirror Plane, just select either the left or right axis plane here. I'll do this one. And then last step before clicking OK, make sure this is set to new body, otherwise it will merge those objects and you'll have to undo everything. Yep. Bodies, objects, plane, new body, OK. Then all we have to do is four-sided arrow here for move. Just click the mirrored copy. You can move it to the side. As you can see, we have matching left and right bookends. Obviously, if you want the mirrored object to have a different design on its side, you would need to mirror this before you put the SVGs into place. We'll go ahead and cancel and do that for now. And as for the last design, I won't really go over how to make the base design of that, because you should know how to do that already. It is just designing this without the little support beams. And then you just export, import into Tinkercad. One last thing I will say before potentially exporting, a good tool to use, good tools rather, are the filet and chamfer. And you can pretty much select any edge with these, which is, that's an edge, that's an edge, that's an edge. And click on one, and then use this arrow to kind of round out or taper off an edge. Chamfer. And if you want symmetry, you can also select multiple edges. So I'll select that one, and I'll hold down Shift and do this one as well. And kind of round off those edges a little bit. However you design it, once it is finalized, we can export and import into Tinkercad. So as you might remember, we'll select the whole thing by clicking here, File, 3D Print, make sure that's unticked, click OK, it'll save it to your computer, and then we can go into Tinkercad, import it, and this is the design I had, and all I really did is I went on the internet, and I found a design for a sword, chopped it up a little bit, found a design for a stone, mashed those two together, and then mashed that together with the bookend, grouped everything together, And simple as that. One last thing to note before finishing up this video. These 3D printed bookends, like most 3D printed things, will be pretty weightless. So if you want these propping up, decently sized books, decent amount of weight, might be a good idea to head over to Amazon or eBay or a craft store or whatever, and just look for some thin rubber adhesive pads. You can take the adhesive off and stick those to the bottom, and that'll keep your bookend nice and firm and in place. That's going to do it for this video. Thanks for watching, everyone, and stay safe out there.